In the stillness of the night, when the noise of the world fades and the mind begins to quiet, there exists a doorway invisible to the eyes, yet nearer than breath. It is in that sacred stillness that you touch the realm of cause, the place where all things begin. When the outer world grows silent and the weight of the day dissolves, you stand before a threshold that no man can close, the doorway of assumption. Here, in the unseen, you are free. Free from appearances, free from logic, free from limitation. In this sacred space, you no longer strive to convince the world of your worth, nor do you beg for what is already yours. The moment you assume your desire to be real, you walk through a door that cannot be shut, for you have entered the kingdom within, the eternal present where all possibilities live. What the senses call locked is already open in spirit. What the mind calls distant is already here in consciousness. The unseen realm responds not to effort, but to awareness. When you dare to believe in the invisible door, when you walk by inner sight instead of outer evidence, you awaken the creative power of God within you, your own wonderful I am. This presence is not distant, not somewhere above or beyond, but intimately one with you. It breathes through your lungs, beats in your heart, and imagines through your mind. It is the still small voice that whispers, "Be still and know that I am." You were never meant to live under the burden of constant striving. You were not created to carry the weight of the world upon your shoulders. You were born from stillness, shaped by peace, and formed in divine assurance. The moment you remember this truth, worry begins to fade like mist before the morning sun. For worry is born only from forgetfulness of your source, of your power, of who you truly are. The world has taught you to push, to plan, to struggle, to prove, but creation was never meant to unfold through effort. It unfolds through assumption, through inner knowing, through quiet conviction. God does not ask you to figure it out. He asks you to rest in what already is. What you desire is not something to be achieved. It is something to be recognized. The door is already open. The way is already made. Yet you cannot walk through it until you first see it within, trust it within, and accept it as already done. To stop worrying is to stop resisting. It is to cease doubting that what you desire is yours. You stop worrying not by force, but by focus, by turning away from appearances and turning toward the silent knowing within. The voice that whispers all is well. The voice that knows the answer before the question forms. The voice that declares the end from the beginning. That voice is your truest self, the divine imagination that shapes reality. You say you trust God, but trust is not a word. It is a feeling, a state of being. Trust is quiet confidence in the invisible. Trust refuses to be moved by appearances. Trust rests in the unseen and says, "It is already done." It is not a desperate hoping, but an inner agreement with the divine that what is promised is already fulfilled. You trust not because you see evidence, but because you feel the truth, and feeling is the secret. Every time you worry, you are imagining something you do not want. Imagination is the womb of creation, and whatever picture you hold within, whether born of fear or faith, must take form without. When you imagine against yourself, do not be surprised when life mirrors that fear. But when you learn to imagine the good, the lovely, the fulfilled desire, worry dissolves. You cannot hold faith and fear at once. You must choose which you serve. This practice is not about pretending to be calm while trembling inside. It is about reconditioning your inner world, training yourself to persist in the assumption that all is already well, that God has already moved, that what you seek is seeking you. Even when the outer world looks unchanged, the inner shift has already begun. You do not beg for what is already yours. You do not plead for doors that are already open. You assume it. You live from the end. You rest in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You let that feeling saturate your being until it becomes more real to you than the evidence of the senses. You walk through life not as one who hopes, but as one who knows. For to know is to rest, and to rest is to allow. When worry rises, it is simply a signal that you have forgotten who you are, forgotten what is true. In that moment, return to the inner sanctuary, to the quiet knowing, to the assumption that the end is already written. Dwell there, live there, for in that dwelling all things are added unto you, not by might, not by struggle, but by alignment. You stop worrying, not through force, but through remembrance, through deliberately choosing again and again to feel as if it is already done. You trust that what you hold in consciousness must clothe itself in form. For God is not a distant force waiting to bless you. God is the power within, fulfilling every image you persistently accept as true. So when fear whispers, answer it with stillness. When doubt rises, answer it with knowing. Say quietly within, it is finished. Say, I trust the unseen more than the seen. And as you hold to that inner state, life bends, reality reshapes, and what once caused you to worry becomes the testimony of your faith. You were not created to worry. You were created to remember, to assume the state of peace, of fulfillment, of answered prayer. Worry is not your inheritance. Faith is, stillness is, divine certainty is. And the moment you return to that awareness, the outer world begins to reflect it. For as within, so without. The open door is not out there, it is within you, waiting only for your recognition. The world will tell you that progress comes through struggle, through relentless action, through the endless pursuit of goals that seem always just beyond your grasp. But the truth is far simpler, quieter, and infinitely more powerful. Life does not unfold because you chase it. It unfolds because you align with it. The outer world is only ever a mirror, reflecting back the inner state you most consistently occupy. Change the state within, and the reflection must follow. This is not philosophy, it is law. You have felt it before, in small, fleeting moments. The day you decided to stop trying so hard, and suddenly everything began to fall into place. The moment you released your grip on something you wanted, and it came effortlessly to you. Those moments are not coincidences, they are glimpses of how reality truly works. There is a rhythm to creation, a divine order that does not bend to pressure, but responds instantly to belief. Every desire, every dream already exists in a state of completion within consciousness. You do not bring it into being by force. You bring it into visibility by assumption. You imagine not to escape reality, but to shape it. The invisible act is the only act that truly matters. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are not pretending. You are remembering what already is. The unseen world is complete. It is we who must learn to see it. To assume is to occupy a state of being so completely that the outer world begins to organize itself around that inner conviction. Most people live by reaction. They allow circumstances to dictate their emotions, their beliefs, their expectations. But you are not called to live reactively. You are called to live imaginatively, to walk through life with the quiet certainty that everything you desire is already yours, unfolding with divine precision. The door does not open because you knock harder. It opens because you realize it was never locked. When you understand this, something profound begins to shift. You stop fighting time. You stop demanding proof. You begin to see that effort is a symptom of doubt, and ease is the language of faith. It is not laziness to rest in trust. It is the highest form of intelligence. It is knowing that your imagination is not a daydream, but the instrument of God expressing itself through you. Every image you hold with conviction is a command to creation. Stillness is not the absence of movement, but the alignment of movement with divine timing. When you are still inwardly, everything moves on your behalf. The right people appear, the opportunities align, the steps unfold, one after another, as if by magic. But it is not magic, it is law. The outer is compelled to reflect the inner. You are not waiting for things to happen. Things are waiting for you to assume. This is why worry is such a distortion. Worry is faith in reverse. It is the use of imagination to create the very thing you fear. You see a negative outcome, you feel it as real, and then life mirrors that vibration. The universe does not judge, it only reflects. When you fill your mind with images of lack, lack multiplies. When you dwell on what could go wrong, you open the door for it to enter. But the moment you begin to imagine what could go right, when you dare to assume the beauty, the peace, the fulfillment of your desire already realized, the same law works in your favor. You are not punished by the law, you are shaped by it. To live by assumption is to reclaim your creative power. It means you no longer wait for signs, for permission, for evidence. You become the sign. You move through the world as if everything you asked for has already been given, because in truth, it has. You speak with quiet confidence, not arrogance, because your certainty is not based on circumstance, but on inner awareness. You begin to live not toward the fulfillment of a desire, but from it, and that shift changes everything. The one who assumes does not chase, they attract. They do not plead, they know. They do not rush, they trust. And this trust has a texture, a feeling, like standing in sunlight after a long storm, like knowing something wonderful is already on its way, even before you see a sign of it. That is the state of creation. You don't fake it, you feel it. And as you feel it, you become it. There will always be moments where appearances contradict your assumption, when the world seems to echo your old fears, your old patterns, your old doubts. But those moments are only shadows of what you used to believe. Do not fight them, let them fade on their own. They are reminders that you are in transition, moving from one state to another. Remain faithful to the new vision, even when nothing outside confirms it yet. Your persistence is the proof of your faith. Faith is not something you build once. It is something you return to again and again until it becomes second nature. When fear arises, it is not failure. It is simply a signal to remember, to breathe, to come back to the inner state of completion. The mind will want to analyze, to control, to make sense of it all, but the mind was never meant to lead. It was meant to serve. Let imagination lead. Let the unseen guide you. When you finally surrender to this truth, peace begins to take root in you. You stop fighting for outcomes and start resting in alignment. You stop living from lack and begin to move with abundance. You stop trying to prove your worth and simply live as if you already are worthy, which you always have been. In that state, life becomes cooperative rather than combative. You do not push against it, you flow with it. The secret is not to try harder, but to believe deeper, to close your eyes and feel the end is already achieved, to let your heart settle into the knowing that what you have asked for exists now, and that your only task is to stay loyal to that awareness. The rest, the people, the timing, the circumstances, will unfold naturally, perfectly, beautifully. You were never meant to live in effort. You were meant to live in ease, not idle ease, but the ease of faith, the calm assurance that everything you truly desire is already complete in the unseen, waiting for your recognition. The one who lives in that knowing walks through life unbothered, unhurried, unmoved by delay, because they understand that every moment is simply the unfolding of what already is. And when you reach that state, worry disappears. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. There comes a moment in every awakening soul when the need to control finally exhausts itself. You have pushed, analyzed, prayed with trembling hands, and waited for signs that seemed slow to arrive. Yet beneath all that effort, a quiet truth has always been whispering. Life is not demanding your struggle. It is waiting for your surrender. The real transformation begins not when you try harder, but when you stop resisting what already is. To surrender is not to give up, it is to give over. It is to release the illusion that you must personally manage the infinite orchestration of life. It is to trust that there is a current already flowing in your favor, one that does not require your interference, only your willingness to be carried. The ego believes it must build every bridge, knock on every door, and fight to be seen. But the soul knows that the bridges appear the moment you align, and the doors open the moment you believe. The universe is not testing you, it is teaching you to trust. Every delay, every silence, every detour has been refining that trust. The waiting was not punishment, it was preparation. Life has never withheld from you, it has only waited for you to soften, to stop insisting that things must happen your way and on your schedule. The moment you let go of the timeline, everything begins to breathe again. You realize that divine timing is never late. It's precise. Letting go does not mean abandoning your vision. It means releasing your grip on how it must unfold. You still hold the image of what you desire, but you stop strangling it with anxiety. You stop rehearsing the when and the how, and instead rest in the certainty of the what, the feeling of fulfillment, the knowing that it already exists in the unseen. That knowing becomes your resting place, your anchor in the midst of uncertainty. And when you stop trying to control life, you make space for life to surprise you, and it will. The phone call you didn't expect, the opportunity that seemed to appear out of nowhere, the timing that feels impossibly perfect, these are not coincidences. They are the natural results of alignment. What was once delayed by your doubt is released by your trust. It is as though the entire universe had been waiting for you to exhale. Control is born of fear, the fear that if you don't hold everything together, it will all fall apart. But the truth is that your effort has never held the universe together. Love has. Intelligence has. The same power that keeps planets in motion is the power orchestrating your path. When you stop resisting that power, you begin to flow with it. You begin to see that your only true responsibility is to maintain the inner state from which your world flows. There is a kind of quiet courage in letting go. It's not loud or dramatic. It's calm, deliberate, trusting. It's the courage to stop performing for reality and start participating in it. To wake each morning and decide, I will not chase today. I will allow. It is the courage to stand in faith when nothing visible has yet changed, to feel peace even when evidence is absent. That kind of courage is not passive. It is the highest expression of power. When you let go, you discover that manifestation was never about effort. It was about resonance. You do not create by doing, you create by being. You become the state that matches the desire, and the desire must meet you there. The frequency of peace attracts peaceful experiences. The frequency of gratitude attracts abundance. The outer world is simply translating your vibration into form. In the stillness that follows surrender, you begin to hear life differently. The noise of fear quiets, and subtle guidance rises. A nudge to make a call, an urge to visit a place, a sudden idea that feels light and certain. These are the whispers of alignment. They are not frantic, they do not rush you. They move with grace, with precision. When you follow them, doors open that you didn't even know existed. This is how the divine works, silently, efficiently, without struggle. It doesn't argue with obstacles, it rearranges them. It doesn't need your permission to bless you, but it does wait for your cooperation. When you resist, you delay. When you trust, you accelerate. Life doesn't respond to your worry, it responds to your willingness. Most people believe letting go means losing control, but the opposite is true. When you release control, you gain alignment, and alignment is the highest form of mastery. It's the awareness that your part in creation is internal, to feel it done, to hold the frequency of the end fulfilled. Everything else is handled by the unseen intelligence that moves galaxies and hearts alike. So begin to practice this art of allowing. The next time the mind demands a plan, return to the feeling of peace. When anxiety rises, remind yourself it is already handled. When impatience whispers, remember that divine timing is weaving threads you cannot see. Trust that each moment, even the still ones, is movement. The paradox of letting go is that nothing real is ever lost. What is meant for you cannot pass you by, and what passes you by was never meant to stay. When you understand this, you stop clinging. You stop grasping at illusions of control. You walk lightly, freely, confidently. You act when inspired, rest when guided to, and let life meet you halfway. There is no greater freedom than to know that you do not have to make it happen. You only have to allow it to happen. You are not abandoned in the process. You are being carried by it. You are not forgotten by the divine. You are being refined by it. Every unanswered question, every seeming delay, every door that once felt closed, all of it is part of a divine choreography that leads you exactly where you are meant to be. So breathe, let go of the fight. Trust the current that has always been flowing toward you. You will find that the moment you release your need to control, peace will rise quietly from within, steady, certain, unshakable. And from that peace, everything else will follow. There comes a point in the journey where faith stops being an idea and becomes the very air you breathe. It no longer lives as something you reach for in moments of desperation. It becomes the quiet rhythm of your existence. To live by faith is to walk through life guided not by appearances, but by an invisible certainty that everything is unfolding as it should. You stop waiting for confirmation, and you start moving as though the confirmation has already been given. Faith is not blind optimism. It is not pretending that pain doesn't exist or that challenges don't come. Faith is vision beyond sight. It is the ability to perceive the promise even when the evidence contradicts it. It's standing in the middle of uncertainty and still declaring, "It is done." When you live from faith, you stop measuring progress by what you can see and begin to measure it by the peace you feel inside. Most people think of faith as belief in something external, trusting that some distant power might intervene on their behalf. But true faith begins within. It is not about convincing God to act. It is about aligning yourself with the truth that God already has. Faith is agreement with what already exists in the unseen. It is an inner acceptance that the fulfillment of your desire is not in the future. It is now. Every moment you persist in that awareness, you are magnetizing the outer world to reflect it. The mind, of course, resists this truth. It demands to know how, when, through whom. It wants proof before peace. But the soul whispers the opposite. Be at peace first, and proof will follow. The world of form is always one step behind the world of spirit. The invisible creates the visible. Faith is the bridge between the two. You will know you are walking by faith when you can look at a situation that once triggered anxiety and feel stillness instead. When you can face a closed door and say, if not this one, another, better, truer, divinely aligned. Faith changes your tone, your posture, the energy that walks into every room with you. It doesn't demand attention. It commands it quietly because it radiates certainty. You are no longer the one hoping. You are the one who knows. To act from faith means to let your behavior reflect your belief. If you believe abundance is yours, you stop acting from scarcity. If you believe healing is happening, you stop speaking as though you are broken. You begin to match your words, your choices, your energy to the reality you have already claimed within. This is not pretending, it is embodying. You are embodying the version of yourself who already has what you desire, and the world, unable to resist that vibration, rearranges itself to match. Faith never asks you to be perfect. It asks only that you return. When doubt whispers, return. When impatience creeps in, return. Faith is a practice of remembering who you are when the noise of the world tries to make you forget. And with every return, your conviction deepens, your trust grows stronger, and life begins to mirror that constancy. Faith also changes the way you move through waiting. Most people experience waiting as tension, as if time itself were an enemy, but faith transforms waiting into sacred space. The silence between what you asked for and its appearance becomes holy ground. It is there that your trust matures, your vision clarifies, your energy aligns. You stop asking when and start declaring now, because faith lives outside of time. In the realm of faith, everything is already complete. You may notice that as your faith strengthens, certain things begin to fall away. Old fears, old attachments, even old relationships. This is not loss, it is calibration. The higher your frequency, the less you can carry what belongs to the lower. Faith elevates you, and what cannot rise with you naturally dissolves. It may hurt at first, but soon you realize it was never rejection, only refinement. Life is making space for what truly belongs to you. To live by faith also means to surrender your need to understand everything. The human mind loves logic, cause and effect, proof and plan. But divine intelligence does not operate in straight lines. It moves in spirals, weaving threads of grace you can't yet see. Faith trusts the pattern even in the dark. It says, even if I cannot trace it, I know it is there. That knowing allows you to rest while others rush, to smile when others panic, to stand when others fall. There is a kind of quiet confidence that comes when you realize nothing can be taken from you that is truly yours. Faith reveals that your life is not random, it is exact. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment is not working against you, but for you. It is guiding you toward alignment, toward the unfolding of what you already are in spirit. When you see life this way, fear loses its power, because you stop needing to control outcomes. You trust that what you desire desires you too. Faith doesn't mean you stop acting. It means your actions become inspired rather than desperate. They arise naturally from the state of knowing. You feel a gentle nudge to move, to speak, to create, and it feels light, effortless. You no longer act to make something happen. You act because it already has. You are simply participating in the revealing of what is complete. That is the essence of faith in motion. You will find that the longer you live in this awareness, the more miracles seem to appear. But they are not miracles. They are laws functioning perfectly. Faith simply removes the interference that doubt creates. It allows what is already done to manifest in its time. The impossible begins to feel natural because you are living from a higher order of truth. In this way, faith becomes less of an act and more of an atmosphere. It surrounds you, it colors your words, it guides your decisions. People will feel it even if they cannot name it. The calm certainty, the unhurried trust. You will notice that the things you used to chase begin to seek you instead. Opportunities seem to find you, doors open without knocking, and peace becomes your default state. To live by faith is not to escape reality, it is to reshape it. It is to bring the unseen into the seen through unwavering conviction. It is to wake up each day and say, everything I desire is already mine. I will act as though it is so, feel as though it is so, and know it until it becomes so. In that knowing lies freedom. And as you walk this path, you begin to realize that faith is not something you carry, it carries you. It holds you steady through uncertainty, it whispers when fear shouts, it lights the way when reason can't. Faith is not the absence of doubt, it is the decision that something greater than doubt is true. It is the bridge between where you stand and where you are already destined to arrive. So walk in that assurance. Let your faith be louder than your fear, deeper than your worry, and stronger than your senses. Live from the unseen until it becomes seen. And one day, without warning, you'll realize you are standing in the very life you once only dared to imagine, and it will feel perfectly natural, as though it had been yours all along. There is a point in the journey where faith matures into something even deeper, a quiet trust that does not need to see, to ask, or even to understand. It is no longer the trust that comes and goes with emotion or circumstance, but a steady undercurrent of knowing that life, in all its mysterious precision, is working in your favor. This kind of trust cannot be forced. It is cultivated. It grows through the very moments that once made you doubt. It is born not from everything going right, but from realizing that even when things fall apart, you are still held. To trust at this level is to stop negotiating with life. It is to stop saying, I'll believe when I see, and to start declaring, I see because I believe. It is the art of walking through the fog without needing to know where the next step will land, confident that the ground will appear beneath your feet. This is not recklessness, it is divine confidence. It is the awareness that the same power that set the stars in their courses is guiding your every movement, even when you cannot trace the path. Trust begins when the noise of the mind quiets. The mind seeks to control, to predict, to categorize every event as good or bad, success or failure. But trust operates on another frequency entirely. It listens to a deeper rhythm, the whisper beneath the noise that says all is well. That whisper is the voice of the divine within you. When you learn to hear it, your entire way of living changes. You no longer wake each morning trying to fix, to solve, to prove. You wake ready to flow, to respond, to create. You move through life as though the outcome has already been secured, because in truth, it has. Most people think trust is passive, a kind of surrender that leaves everything to chance. But real trust is an act of alignment. It is deliberate, alive, and deeply engaged. It means you choose peace instead of panic. You choose patience instead of forcing outcomes. You choose faith even when the evidence suggests otherwise. And every time you make that choice, something within you strengthens. The energy of resistance begins to dissolve, and the world, sensing your calm, rearranges itself to match it. When you live in trust, timing loses its tyranny. You stop counting days, measuring progress, comparing your journey to others. You begin to see that nothing real can miss you and nothing unreal can stay. You realize that delay is not denial but divine choreography. The timing you once feared becomes the very evidence of a higher intelligence at work. You no longer chase signs, you become one. You no longer pray for proof, you walk as proof. To live in this state is to experience a kind of effortless power. You act not to make things happen, but because they already have. You speak not to persuade, but to affirm. You create not from emptiness, but from overflow. Trust does not eliminate action, it transforms it. Every word, every step, every gesture becomes infused with calm purpose. There is no rush in it, no grasping, no struggle, only flow. You begin to see patterns where you once saw chaos. The missed opportunity that once felt like failure now reveals itself as protection. The delay that once frustrated you now shows its hidden wisdom. The loss that once broke you becomes the foundation of your becoming. When you trust, perspective shifts. Life no longer happens to you, it happens through you. The events of your world cease to be random. They become messages, mirrors, invitations to deeper awareness. Sometimes this trust will be tested. There will be nights when silence feels heavy, when prayers seem unanswered, when doors remain closed. But those are the very moments when trust does its most sacred work. For in that silence, the mind's grip loosens and the heart learns to listen. In that waiting, you are being prepared for what could not have come any sooner. You are being stretched into the version of yourself that can hold what you have asked for. Trust also redefines strength. The world will tell you that strength is resistance, that to be strong is to fight, to push, to never yield. But real strength is gentler. It is the strength to stay soft when everything tries to harden you, the strength to believe when reason says not to, the strength to stand still while the world rushes by, knowing that your stillness is not stagnation but alignment. In that stillness, you find clarity. You hear what is yours to do and what is not. There will be moments when others cannot see what you see. They will question your calm, your certainty, your refusal to worry. They will tell you to be realistic, to prepare for disappointment. But trust does not need validation. It is self-sustaining. You will smile gently, knowing that what they call unrealistic is simply faith unshaken by sight. And when the results appear, as they always do, they will call it luck. But you will know better. Trust is not built in comfort, it is forged in contradiction. It deepens every time you choose to believe despite appearances. Each time you resist the urge to panic, each time you breathe instead of react, each time you say, "It is already done," you are carving a deeper channel for peace to flow through you. And soon, that peace becomes your natural state. You stop reaching for it, it becomes who you are. When you live from trust, even uncertainty becomes sacred. You stop fearing the unknown and start seeing it as a field of possibility. You realize that uncertainty is not a void. It is the creative space from which everything new emerges. The mind calls it danger, but the spirit calls it birth. You no longer shrink from the unknown. You welcome it, because you know that what waits on the other side of uncertainty is always expansion. To trust in this way is to live beyond fear. It is to know that no matter what happens, you are held, guided, and supported by something greater than yourself. That doesn't mean you will never face challenges. It means you will face them differently. You will walk through storms without losing your footing. You will meet endings without despair, knowing they are only beginnings in disguise. You will stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and start saying, "What is this teaching me?" And as you walk this path of trust, something beautiful happens. Life begins to mirror your stillness. Situations that once caused chaos start resolving on their own. People show up at the perfect moment. The right words find you when you need them most. You notice signs of grace everywhere, not because grace was absent before, but because you finally became still enough to see it. This is the quiet mastery of trust. It does not shout, it does not chase, it does not strive, it simply knows. It is the awareness that you are part of a divine intelligence too vast to fail. It is the confidence that what you seek has already been given. And when you live from that knowing, fear becomes irrelevant and peace becomes inevitable. So trust the timing, trust the pauses, trust the paths that twist and the doors that close, trust the silence and the storm. For all of it is working together, shaping you, guiding you, leading you home, to the realization that nothing has ever been against you, and that everything, in its own perfect way, has always been for you. There is a moment in every seeker's life when trust must evolve into embodiment, when faith is no longer something you hold in your mind, but something you live, breathe, and express through every action. This is where belief becomes movement, where imagination steps into the world clothed in form. It is not enough to know that your desire is already yours. You must begin to move as the one who already possesses it. You must think, speak, and act from that inner completion until the outer world cannot help but conform. Acting from faith is not performance. It is not pretending to be what you are not. It is allowing the truth you have claimed within to express itself naturally, effortlessly through you. The difference is subtle but life-changing. Pretending is rooted in fear. It hopes to convince the world. Acting from faith is rooted in knowing. It does not seek proof because it understands that reality follows conviction, not the other way around. When you act from faith, your steps are no longer reactions to what you see. They are extensions of what you know. You stop asking whether you're ready or qualified or deserving. You move because the inner world has already declared it done. Every great transformation begins this way, not with a miracle that changes you, but with an inner shift that changes how you walk through life. The one who walks by faith does not wait for doors to open. They walk as though they already have, and the world rearranges itself to accommodate that certainty. You begin to notice that every inspired impulse carries a kind of quiet authority. It doesn't demand or force, it simply knows. It is the same knowing that tells the seed when to bloom or the tide when to rise. You are part of that same intelligence, and when you act in harmony with it, everything aligns with remarkable precision. There will always be a moment between inner conviction and outer evidence, a space where nothing seems to be happening. That is where most people lose heart, believing their efforts are wasted. But those who understand the laws of consciousness know that this pause is sacred. It is the gestation period of creation, where unseen forces are arranging the conditions that match your inner state. In those moments, patience becomes power. Your stillness becomes magnetic. You are not waiting idly. You are maintaining the vibration that calls the invisible into form. To act from faith is also to move without the weight of fear. Fear will always try to disguise itself as logic, whispering that it's safer to wait for proof, to stay small, to prepare for disappointment. But logic cannot measure the infinite. The mind calculates, faith creates. The mind follows what has been, faith builds what will be. Acting from faith requires you to choose creation over calculation, to trust that the same force that gave you the desire has already prepared its fulfillment. You will find that once you begin to live this way, life starts responding differently. Coincidences become confirmations. A chance meeting leads to an opportunity that seems designed just for you. The right words come at the right time. It feels as though something unseen is guiding your every move. and it is. The power that moves worlds moves through you. You are not forcing outcomes, you are following resonance. To act from faith does not mean you ignore reality. It means you redefine it. Reality is not what is happening, it is what is being accepted as true within you. When you shift your state, the world eventually reflects that shift. It cannot resist the gravity of sustained belief. That is why consistency is more powerful than intensity. You do not need to force faith into being. You only need to return to it every time doubt appears. You will know that you are acting from faith when there is a sense of peace behind every decision, even the bold ones. Fearful action feels frantic, like running to catch something before it disappears. Faithful action feels deliberate, calm, aligned, as though something larger is moving with you. You begin to notice that your choices carry a quiet ease, even in uncertainty. That ease is the mark of alignment. Faith-filled action also teaches discernment. Not every impulse is divine guidance, and not every delay is denial. There will be times when silence is the instruction. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is to do nothing, to remain still, to refuse to interfere, to trust that the unseen is moving faster than your effort ever could. This balance between action and surrender is the true art of manifestation. It is learning to act when inspired and to rest when guided, to wait. Both are expressions of faith. Over time, acting from faith becomes a way of being. You stop seeking confirmation from outcomes because your peace no longer depends on them. You no longer oscillate between belief and doubt because the two cannot coexist in one who knows. Even challenges no longer threaten you because you understand that obstacles are simply invitations to deepen your alignment. You do not see problems, you see opportunities to remember your power. Faithful action also transforms how you see yourself. You stop living as a seeker and begin living as a creator. You realize that the miracles you once hoped for are natural consequences of sustained belief. You stop chasing signs of progress and start embodying progress itself. You understand that the outer world is only a canvas, and that you, through the paintbrush of imagination and faith, are shaping every scene. This understanding brings profound humility, not the kind that belittles, but the kind that marvels at the intelligence of life. You see that you are not the source of power, but its vessel. The ego wants to take credit for the manifestation, but faith knows it was never about control. It was always about cooperation. The moment you let go of pride and surrender to this cooperation, creation becomes effortless. To live this way is to walk through life with quiet certainty. You no longer demand that things happen, you allow them. You no longer strive to make your way, you follow the way that is already unfolding. Each action becomes an offering, each moment a declaration of trust. You start to see beauty in the process itself, not just the result. You realize that every inspired step, no matter how small, carries you closer, not to something new, but to a deeper expression of what you already are. And as you continue walking in faith, you begin to feel an unshakable truth settling into your bones. Nothing can be taken from you that belongs to you, and nothing that belongs to you can miss you. Every step you take in trust is met by unseen steps coming toward you. The bridges you thought you had to build appear beneath your feet. The doors you feared were closed open with grace. Life meets you at the level of your faith, never lower. This is the sacred paradox of action born from faith. It looks effortless but moves mountains. It feels calm but carries power. It is not driven by need but by knowing. The one who acts from faith does not push against the world. They move with it, and the world, recognizing itself in them, yields completely. There comes a season in every inner journey when all the theories, affirmations, and ideas about manifestation must descend from the mind into lived experience. It is the moment when you realize that believing is not enough. You must become. You must embody the end you have so often imagined, not occasionally, not only when it's easy, but as a steady way of being. Living in the end is not a technique, it is a transformation of identity. It is remembering so deeply who you are in spirit that the outer world no longer dictates what you can or cannot be. Living in the end means you stop reaching for your desire and start existing from it. You stop being the one who waits and become the one who already has. It's a shift so profound that everything about you begins to change. Your tone, your energy, your choices, even your silence. You no longer ask, when will it happen? Because that question belongs to the version of you who believes it hasn't. The one who lives in the end doesn't wonder if it will come. They know it already has, and they walk through life as its living evidence. To live in the end is to enter a state where imagination and reality merge. You begin to treat your inner vision as more real than the outer appearance. You may still see the old conditions around you, the same job, the same house, the same circumstance, but something inside you has shifted. You no longer identify with what you see. You identify with what you know. You have become loyal to the invisible, and in time, the visible must bow to that loyalty. Most people live in the middle. They start with a desire, they imagine its fulfillment for a moment, and then they return to the waiting place, the gap between what is wanted and what is seen. That middle ground is filled with doubt, impatience, and contradiction. It is where faith flickers, because the senses keep arguing with the truth of the unseen. But the master of consciousness does not live in the middle. They begin at the end. They move their awareness into the completed picture and stay there until it feels natural. It's important to understand that living in the end is not denial of the present. It's dominion over it. You are not pretending circumstances don't exist. You are choosing which reality you give power to. You no longer feed the appearance of lack with fear or attention. Instead, you nourish the vision of fulfillment with unwavering conviction. You treat the imagined scene as sacred, revisiting it often, feeling it more deeply each time until it becomes your inner home. This is not about intensity, it is about consistency. The world does not change because of fleeting moments of belief, but because of sustained states of being. You cannot visit your desired reality occasionally and expect to live there permanently. You must take residence in it. Every time the mind tempts you to worry, you return to the end. Every time fear whispers, "What if it doesn't happen?" you answer, "It already has." You do this not with strain, but with calm assurance, knowing that persistence is the secret rhythm of creation. Living in the end also transforms the way you perceive time. You stop thinking of manifestation as something that will occur in the future. The future no longer exists for you because everything is now. Every fulfilled desire is already complete in the timeless dimension of consciousness. What we call time is simply the unfolding of that inner reality into visible sequence. The one who lives in the end understands this and therefore has no need to hurry. They rest, they trust, and they watch the outer world catch up to what they have already accepted as true. This level of awareness changes how you respond to challenges. When delays or setbacks appear, you no longer interpret them as signs of failure. You see them as necessary adjustments, fine-tuning the alignment between your inner and outer worlds. You begin to realize that every apparent obstacle is a messenger, asking only one question: will you remain faithful to the end you've seen? And when you do, the obstacle dissolves, often in ways you could never have planned. To live in the end requires emotional discipline, the willingness to feel now what you once promised to feel later. The world teaches you to postpone joy until conditions justify it. I'll be happy when I get the job, when I meet the person, when the dream comes true. But living in the end reverses that order. It asks you to feel the joy now, not as fantasy, but as fact. The feeling itself is the creative act. When you sustain that inner emotion without needing evidence, you are giving life to the reality that matches it. And so, you begin to understand that emotion is not a reaction. It is the foundation. The outer world is always responding to your dominant emotional state. When you feel fulfilled, life must mirror that fulfillment. When you feel abundant, life cannot help but arrange itself around that vibration. This is why Neville said, "Feeling is the secret. Thought shapes form, but feeling breathes life into it." The one who lives in the end learns to master feeling, not by forcing emotion, but by nurturing it. There is a quiet kind of power in walking through the world as one who already has. You no longer speak from longing, but from completion. Your conversations change. You stop complaining, stop explaining, stop defending your vision. You speak as though the outcome were old news, and that calm certainty begins to radiate from you. People sense it without knowing why. They call it confidence, presence, charisma. But it is none of these things. It is remembrance. You are simply remembering your true state of being. This remembrance brings peace. You are no longer chasing signs or needing validation. You no longer swing between hope and fear. You become steady, unmovable, anchored in your assumption. The noise of the world fades because you are no longer listening for permission to believe. You have given yourself permission. And in that quiet conviction, the universe responds with absolute precision. Sometimes living in the end means walking through moments that seem the exact opposite of your vision. The evidence will test you. Life will ask, do you still believe? And in those moments, your answer must not be in words, but in being. You keep your inner posture firm, even when the outer world wobbles. You remind yourself that appearances are echoes, delayed reflections of old states. You don't argue with the echo, you outgrow it. Over time, the world begins to mirror your new identity. The phone call comes, the opportunity appears, the door opens, and everyone around you calls it a miracle. But you know it was never sudden. It was the natural outcome of living in the end, of dwelling consistently in the feeling of completion. You understand that what you now see was finished long before it appeared. And then something even greater happens. You stop desiring as you once did. Desire itself becomes less about acquisition and more about expression. You no longer create to fill a void, but to reveal what already lives within you. You no longer chase outcomes. You let them unfold as extensions of your inner wholeness. The more you live in the end, the more you realize there is no end at all, only deeper and deeper layers of realization. Living in the end is not about reaching a point of satisfaction. It's about remembering your creative nature. It's about moving through life as consciousness made visible, unchanging, eternal, complete. And when you finally live from that awareness, everything that once felt difficult begins to flow. You don't force, you don't wait, you simply are. And that is the greatest secret of all. Creation does not begin when you act, it begins when you remember. There comes a time, once you've learned to live in the end, when you must face the next great threshold, the art of letting go. Letting go is not giving up, it is not indifference. It is the quiet confidence of one who knows that creation is complete. It is the moment when you no longer feel the need to control, to push, to force the unseen to reveal itself on your schedule. It is the shift from effort to ease, from insistence to trust. Most people misunderstand surrender. They think of it as defeat, as if letting go means abandoning the dream. But true surrender is not the death of desire, it is its fulfillment. It is the point at which desire has matured into faith so deep that no proof is needed. The one who has truly let go does not stop believing, they simply stop doubting. They no longer hold the vision with tension but with tenderness. To let go is to release your grip on the how. The human mind is addicted to methods. It wants to map the path from beginning to end. It wants guarantees, formulas, control. But the divine process does not reveal itself to the calculating mind. It moves through intuition, synchronicity, and timing too perfect to plan. When you let go, you stop trying to build bridges with logic, and you allow the bridges of grace to appear. Letting go means handing the orchestration back to the higher intelligence that placed the desire in your heart in the first place. The same power that inspired the vision knows exactly how to fulfill it. Your part was never to carry the weight of creation, only to imagine, to feel, to assume. The rest belongs to the divine rhythm, the invisible current that moves mountains without strain. When you surrender to that rhythm, life stops being a battlefield and becomes a dance. This kind of surrender feels like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. There's a sense of spaciousness that enters your being, a lightness that says, I no longer need to make this happen. That moment of release is when the real magic begins. The energy that was trapped in anxiety and overthinking is freed, and life rushes in to fill the space you've cleared. Suddenly, things begin to move. Messages arrive, doors open, people cross your path. You realize that what you tried so hard to create was already forming behind the scenes. It only needed you to stop interfering. Letting go is an act of faith disguised as stillness. It requires courage, the courage to trust the unseen more than the visible. You will be tempted to check for progress, to look for signs, to ask, is it happening yet? But the moment you begin to seek evidence, you've stepped out of faith and back into fear. True faith asks for no proof. It rests. It waits without anxiety because it knows the law is already in motion. You let go not because you don't care, but because you care enough to stop resisting. Resistance is born from the belief that you must do something to make it real. But what if it's already real? What if the only thing delaying its arrival is your constant need to verify its existence? The farmer doesn't dig up the seed each day to check for growth. They water, they trust, and they let the soil do its work. So must you. Letting go is also the liberation of identity. You stop defining yourself by what is missing and start identifying with what is complete. You no longer say, I am waiting for my dream, but I am living from it. You don't obsess over timing because you've stepped outside of time altogether. The one who lets go lives in eternity, where all things are already finished. You may feel uncomfortable in this space of surrender. The mind will rebel. It will tell you that if you don't do something, nothing will happen. It will warn you about missed opportunities, forgotten dreams, wasted time. But this is the illusion of separation speaking. The mind believes it must manage life, yet life has always managed itself. The sun does not rush to rise, the tides do not struggle to return. The seasons never ask if they are on schedule. All of creation moves with effortless precision. Why should your life be any different? Letting go also means releasing attachment to outcomes. This doesn't mean you stop desiring. It means you trust that whatever unfolds will be perfect. You understand that the form may change, but the essence will always match the feeling you've nurtured within. Sometimes what you think you want is only a symbol, a doorway to something deeper. When you release your attachment to the exact shape of the manifestation, you allow the divine to surprise you with something greater than your imagination could conceive. This release transforms you. You stop living in tension and start living in rhythm. Your days feel lighter, your thoughts quieter. You begin to notice small signs of alignment. Moments that once seemed trivial now shimmer with meaning. A conversation overheard, a coincidence too precise to ignore, a delay that suddenly makes sense. You start to see that letting go doesn't slow the process. It accelerates it. Life moves faster when you stop standing in its way. To let go is to return to trust, again and again. Every time anxiety arises, you breathe and remind yourself, it is done. Every time doubt whispers, you answer with peace. You learn to measure progress not by external results, but by your internal calm. If peace is present, you are aligned. If tension returns, you have picked up the burden again, and you can just as easily set it down. Letting go doesn't mean you never act. It means your actions are no longer driven by fear. You act when inspired, not when pressured. You make decisions from clarity, not panic. There is a difference between control and cooperation, and you begin to understand it deeply. Control is rigid and anxious. Cooperation is fluid and trusting. When you cooperate with life, things unfold with grace. When you try to control life, everything feels heavy. As you master this art of surrender, you notice a quiet transformation taking place. The same world that once felt unpredictable now feels divinely ordered. You stop chasing signs because they appear naturally. You stop worrying about what's next because you can feel the rhythm of divine timing pulsing beneath every moment. What once felt like waiting now feels like preparation. What once felt like uncertainty now feels like unfolding perfection. And when the thing you've imagined finally appears, when the vision takes form, You'll smile, not in surprise but in recognition, because deep down you always knew. You'll see that the letting go wasn't about losing control. It was about remembering that you never needed it. You were never meant to carry the whole process, only to align with it. The paradox is this: you let go, and everything arrives. You release, and everything returns. Because in truth, you never needed to hold on. The moment you trusted, it was already yours. The moment you rested, the universe began to move. This is the quiet mastery of life, not to force the door open, but to know it was never locked. Letting go is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of freedom. It is the point where faith becomes peace, and peace becomes proof. It is the moment when you realize that the universe has always been conspiring, not against you, but for you. And once you understand that, you no longer chase miracles, because you are living in the flow of one.